Okay, hello, this is Back Talk, and my name is Suzanna Spertsyan. I'm your host, and today I have a guest, my really good friend, whose surname I just forgot but just remembered, Suzanna Spertsyan. Welcome, Suzanna.
Hi.
Hello.
Thanks for having me.
You're so
and
welcome.
for forgetting my last name.
Oh, yeah, well, that was really embarrassing, but we're so over it. Suzanna is a stylist, artist, and writer. I just read your piece actually today in this Pierce paper that I brought to you. You shouldn't forget to pick it up. It's really cute. And what is this dog name? This Armenian field running sheep hoarding dog.
Gampr.
Gampr.
That's the breed, yeah.
Ah,
And his name was Basar.
Basar.
Mhm.
Yeah. What did it really happen? The story with the biting of the Basar?
Absolutely.
Wow, were you a kid?
No. It was like 3 years ago? 4 years ago?
Oh.
Yeah, I was on a trip to Armenia for like 3 months.
Yeah.
That's actually when I kind of got to work on my first project related to costumes, and I wrote an article about Armenian names there. And I was just this family was like my grandfather's neighbors in a village not far from Yerevan, the capital of Armenia.
Yeah, you know, not many people know what is Armenia.
Not many people know my last name, so okay, sorry.
I mean,
You gave me some wine, so there's nothing that can't be fixed now in this relationship.
I will tattoo it on my hand. Your surname now. No, never mind. This
That's
was
okay.
the most professional I've ever been in my life. Anyway,
This is great. It's a conversation starter. You should maybe make it a tradition, a ritual on your podcast.
it's gonna throw me off every time. I just will never record any other episode ever again if I keep on forgetting people's names. Just like, you know, asking people to come and just think, who are you again? Thank you for coming from another country. So nice of you. Who are you?
I mean, in your defense, my last name is not so easy to remember. It's kind of caused me inconvenience.
Well,
Most of
like
my
I know
life.
you're making your first name Suzanna into Sue, but we're considering like a nickname for a second name, your surname.
No.
Like a little bit like, you know, very Hollywood vibes. They do be doing also models. You know, they're like Katya K, Sasha P. They love those like abbreviations, which makes it which
would have made me into
Oh yeah, this would have made you into Sue Sper.
or simply Sue S. So
Who is she? Who's Sue S? Oh, that's really dumb.
this is starting so well.
That's
My
okay.
God.
Yeah, I invited you actually after you sent me the Nemesis luxury pyramid. Well, I think I invited you way earlier, but we solidified it with a pyramid of luxury and new luxury that you've sent me. That was neon green, and I think that was a first throw off for me, the coloring of this infographic. I think they should do better, but I think it was also pretty old. And we wanted to discuss this luxury pyramid, but then I'm working on a project now with a client who is connected to Russia, so I had to tap in back into the culture of my of the country I was born in, that I sort of lost touch with for a long while. And I was on a YouTube following all the different new podcasts and influencers and just getting to know what's happening there. And I don't know, it's like you open a vortex or like just a black hole, you know, like you click all the links, and then in the end you just like enter a vortex that is like way bigger than you thought. And one of the conversations I actually found super interesting. They were talking about the fact that in Russia somehow there is this obsession with having a culturally trained eye, which is not necessarily having a good taste or bad taste. It's just having an eye for beauty, in a sense. And it's been perpetuated among like parents, and they would be really interested to train their kids to have like culturally trained eye. And in Russian, you would say насмотренность. And that would be like almost not a quality, but almost like a commodity you could trade, that this person has it and you don't, so they're better. And how much trained their eye is. And if it's trained really well, it's really good. And so they were talking about this idea and how and why it's even culturally so relevant in Russia. And they were saying stuff like most of the parents, like our generation parents, they were growing up in Soviet times where they had no luxury, no visual culture present apart from the Soviet one. So they didn't have a lot of culturally trained eye qualities. They couldn't really exercise it because there was nothing else to see. And we also, on the contrary to our like European friends, let's say, none of us really, apart from singular people in a crew, would have parents from whom they could inherit anything of value in material sense, like objects or fashion or any kind of items of luxury that would be inherently ours and would be beautiful. And we would be surrounded by them all the time, or at any time, for that matter. So we were completely depleted of this beauty of the world surrounding us. We would have to find it in things that were available to us. And so our parents, being super aware of this fact, they would force us to go to museums and look at the beauty, or like go to opera and listen to like classical music, or like generally try to put us in any scenarios of beauty. So we would be able to absorb it one way or another. And this brings us to the situation where there is this hyper-awareness of beauty and lack thereof. And beauty in material sense is seen as class and culture and success. And therefore, when you, for example, live in Moscow, even now, the thing you do when you're a successful person, first thing you do, you start investing in yourself. As a girl, you would go and do your manicure all the time, you would do blow dries, you would laser your hair, you would be so well put together, so clean. And then the more money you make, the more expensive bags and jewelry you buy. But it would be potentially the last thing on your mind to save up and buy an apartment. Like, that's the ultimate luxury, but you're not investing in your future, you're investing in yourself, predominantly, in acquiring those things. So luxury is completely luxury and beauty and items of luxury in Russia, and I believe in that region, is seen completely different from that standpoint. But their conversation didn't even stop there, which I already found actually, well, that is very true. I didn't really think much about it, but I found it very relevant to how I perceived it. But then they ventured more into how they would see now. There were like two women. I think one was like, let's say 35, another would be like 45. They would look at pictures of young girls, and they were showing literally pictures of our friends living in Paris, and how they would be wearing this nonchalant, huge coat on a street and look so cool in Crocs of something. And they would be like, yeah, you see, they moved away and they assimilated and they don't care anymore. And they're just outside in a huge dirty coat, and look how gorgeous they look. And I think in that moment, I realized that my life is completely split in two realities, luxury-wise and dressing-wise and fashion-wise. And one is very like retrograde Russian mentality of the way I was growing up, with seeing beauty as like something to strive for and being an absolute pinnacle of success and just like everything. And the other one is me living in Europe for the 10 plus years and not caring if my hair is clean. And it's an absolute like clash of realities that I was just reflecting on for the past month a lot, and I thought it would be interesting to talk with you about it because, well, you also have, you're coming from Belarus, but you also have Armenian roots, and you work in fashion, and you also not only styling but you're also writing about it and telling stories. And at the same time, maintaining a side profession as a personal shopper, which I find even more interesting, how you work with your clients, depending on where they come from. So yeah, I think I wanted to ask you first what you think about this heritage of training your eye for beauty and how it's reflected in what you do.
I think the first thing that it made me think about is also like how it is the same in the French culture, and I wonder if Russians got it sort of also inspired by the French, because it's something very like French aristocracy inspired, you know, something quite noble, to be насмотренный, to be well cultured, you know, and to sort of demonstrate or manifest your wealth through not the things that you own, but things you've seen. That's very kind of French, but maybe just you know, still in Paris and not here in Amsterdam yet. Another thing is what it made me think of is the years I lived in Moscow, actually, working as a stylist at this department store. So when you're a stylist at a department store, you're essentially like a sales assistant that gets called on the floor when someone asks for a stylist, and then you help them basically compose looks. And the same company that owned this department store used to own like the chain of luxury boutiques called Podium. And I got to interact a bit with that family and just see the world of it all. So it just made me like kind of go on a journey through, like I was in my own.
It's so funny because I remember my mom, when my parents made it for like maybe 2 years in their life, they could afford like luxury. And I would go with my mom to Podium, and it would be
I so wonder, what was it like?
Well, there were really weird memories of this, actually, now that I think about it. But I was really aware of where I am, because I was also privy to going to bazaar and buying jeans at the bazaar in the Jord. So going to this luxury boutique in like middle of 2000s in Moscow, and really understanding that my parents also couldn't afford it all their life, so it was like a thing. I remember at some point I also started seeing things, you know, that would be sort of as kitsch as the things I saw on the bazaar, but they would be just presented completely differently. And I remember one time I was with my dad, and it maybe was there and some other shop similar, and there was this man brogues out of python leather, painted in a color of like gasoline, metallic. And I was like, Dad, you should really get that. Because I was like, I've never seen anything like this. This was completely absurd. And I remember my parents laughing because they were like, yeah, this is crazy. And we were all in this shop, and it was so cool. And there was this crazy shoes. I mean, they probably were really expensive. Well, python leather. But yeah, those memories of just things that were there on sale, like they were very extra, very, very extra, like fur and feathers.
Also, I guess back in those years, if you could afford luxury, you wanted people to be like fully aware this was a luxury piece, you know what I mean? There was no space for like,
yeah,
I don't know, quiet luxury, or there was no space for misunderstanding how much your bag or your whatever shoes cost.
There was like also maybe my parents were quite young, so I think a bit earlier than their time. I think it was really like Versace era of like gold and leopard, and I think mid 2000s rich people, especially if they were training their cultural eye, basically having an ability to travel, that's what it meant. They knew that, yeah, gasoline colored python is not the way to go. However, it's also high time of like...
Depends where you're going.
Yeah, exactly. Depends on where you go. Maybe you're going to like a really expensive nightclub.
I definitely do relate to the struggle between like the kind of fundamental relationship with beauty and kind of the it's not a struggle, but I guess it was a struggle back then for beauty in the sense of like when beauty equals elegance, it equals harmony, it equals, you know, these things that are now like uncool. Like they're just so accessible, I guess, for the majority of people that around us now. I mean, I can't say it's like fully accessible to me personally, individually, but it just feels like it surrounds me also, you know, in the architecture of the city I live in the food that's mostly, you know, affordable to me these days, in clothes I wear, which is a whole different, you know, subject. Yeah. So there's the struggle for like this kind of harmony. Like harmony is the closest word I can find for this kind of notion of beauty. Yeah. That I cultivated throughout my years growing up in Belarus in like utter ugliness. And then the new kind of sense of aesthetics, or I can't say it's a shaped one or established one, but the newly established search or research for new for me, not in any way, kind of objectively new aesthetic or definition of beauty that's more less perfect, more personal.
You mean now you're looking for this?
I'm looking for this for myself, but then also all of this personal journey is also happening in a world that has a very specific kind of weird neurosis going on about beauty. And you know, it feels like you have a god you believed in, you know, this beauty, like capital B. Then you were, you know, you grew up and you were like, okay, maybe, you know, I should look for my own path. And then some people burned down the church completely, which I, you know,
abandon
I have opinions
everything.
about.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, it feels like this weird, you know, the French word anomie, like this weird kind of confused era in terms of beauty, and especially when we talk about it in relation to like the fashion scene I'm in and the job I do. The also two different sides of the job, meaning working with real actual individuals that are trying to do a better job at their appearance, and then the fashion industry and the images that it produces to convince these people they need to do a better job at how they look.
Which is not probably the big part of this fashion world. I'm curious also how big it is on convincing people to do a better job in dress, and how big it is actually on just creating images.
I think it's like, okay, this is a full new like chapter. I don't know if I should just go there.
Go off.
No, but in a way, I think there are two sides to it. I think what the industry does now with the imagery it produces is more like, if we're talking about regular individuals that are not in any way related to the fashion world, even art world, it's that the industry just confuses them mostly. You know, it was much easier when it was about, you have to be hot, you have to be skinny, you have to be this and that. And now it's like, you know, we have inclusivity, we have all these things that we fought for, but then within that we have like, I don't know, categories of things that are just, I'm not sure why they're there without giving specific, I guess, notes.
Wait, what? You mean?
I mean that you get like, in terms of imagery in fashion today, or like aesthetics, or I don't know, vibes. You get like lots of things. So possibly everyone's supposed to recognize themselves within one or the other. But I think in reality, it just creates this kind of like cloud of confusion for an individual that's not within the system and does not operate on the same time span of seeing images, consuming images, digesting them, kind of applying them to their personal style, feeling like they relate to the time and space. So when I mostly work with private clients, they just seem, you know, usually finding your own style is about reducing things. So reducing things in a time of such abundance is even more confusing than when you simply just didn't have access to things like when we were younger, or when, you know, plus size models weren't. So this was a lot of different information, but this is what I'm trying to say.
So you mean, obviously, when there are so many choices and you're not trained to make choices, it's hard to figure out what you need and what it is you want. But also, I think it ties it back a little bit to this idea of training your cultural eye and unexpectedly being very relevant in certain parts of the world where it's like a fetish almost. But then now with like decoding fashion imagery, unless you have it to a certain degree, you cannot participate. So I don't know, does it give leverage to Eastern Bloc? I don't know.
I don't know, dude. Like most of my life, till I'm not that old yet, but till like these past few years, I was kind of in a big denial and sort of I was overcoming my kind of Eastern past that was in many ways,
of course,
say limiting and whatever.
Yeah.
But in a way, it also comes to a point where you realize you come out with a certain value system that's hard to learn, and it's hard to also get rid of. It's just there, and it's structural, and I've just learned to like more sort of recognize it, maybe respect it more, and weirdly apply it to the job I'm doing, because also as a stylist, or like whatever, as a creative, when you are operating in a place where so many things happen and so many opportunities are there, and you're supposed to be loud, and you're supposed to be fast, and you're supposed to be reactive, and you're supposed to be there, you're supposed to be connected. It's a lot to take in, and if you're taking a lot, you just kind of have to know where it's going. Or you yourself, just like a whatever regular customer, you can get really confused with what you're doing and why you're there, or what's your aesthetic, what's your image, what's the thing you're doing. Everything is like really labeled and kind of branded in the scene that I'm entering, and you kind of really have to know who you are to not get overwhelmed. And weirdly, I apply on this Eastern whatever
persona.
heritage. And similarly, I was kind of careful with making my own work, creating my own images, kind of going, I was more doing assisting work and coordinating work, and just working with brands, working with other stylists, just kind of collecting expertise and not rushing into shooting my own images until last February. And the whole thing kind of came up together after the Armenian show that we opened. And weirdly, the whole thing, in French we say déclencher, the big storm or whatever, the big movement, the stream kind of, the source of the stream was my Eastern roots. It was my Armenian identity that was kind of in denial of this whole time. So weirdly, it's a place I go back to when I need order and kind of reevaluation of where I am and why I'm doing these things, etc., etc.
Yeah, I had this question for you when we were preparing value of commodification of your roots and your profession, which I think is undeniable. That's definitely a selling point when you have a strong personal point of view that is also linked to your heritage, which is, appropriation if somebody else would do it, but you can appropriate yourself in a sense, which is, that's always a good strategy. Yeah, but also I'm coming a bit back to this intro, this moment of self-care and like self-investment versus idea of investing into the outside of your body. As I said, like girls who are constantly investing in their personal beauty and wellness, etc., and then they start to buy like expensive jewelry instead of, saving up or buying stock. There was this moment for me personally, for example, when I moved, that at first I really wanted to maintain a certain level of who I am, because that was a part of me that I thought is really who I am, the part of identity, a core part of identity and the values I would put in it. But then I was slowly abandoning it for multiple reasons. I don't know. As easy as I couldn't find a nail technician that I would like. So you just give up, and not in a bad way, like you're giving up on yourself, but slowly but steadily, you notice that you're not just doing this anymore. It's a treat rather than a part of maintenance. And I think at some point when I realized that I stopped doing those things, like coming back to my visual roots, in a sense, it does put you in an odd place where you sort of feel like you don't necessarily need it anymore, but you really like it. That switch really happened, and then I was thinking back at it, and I was like, well, if I'm dressing up in the morning and I'm really putting in effort and I'm doing something crazy and like my yellow boots and my pink skirt and whatever, it's not because I'm doing it every day and it's a norm, but it is treat that I'm consciously treating myself with. And I know that I don't really need it, but I desire it. And this very, I want to say healthy, and I really think it is a really healthy attitude towards fashion, where this desire, which is inherently sold in fashion, this is so pronounced just because of the heritage switch that happened, that I live here for so long that I don't necessarily need the things I used to need before I moved here. So I sort of appropriated certain fashion traits, but then coming back to what I used to do is a pure pleasure. Did you have anything like that where you were like, I'm gonna do this now more consciously just because I know I really love doing it, rather than doing it because you feel like everybody else is doing it?
Yeah, I also just wanted to say something before about the girls back home, or like, you know, dressing up and investing kind of in, it's not about even, dressing up, it's just like really investing in their bodies first of all, and then everything that covers their bodies, you know. I think it's also weirdly connected to the fact that a woman back home is not necessarily concerned that much with buying an apartment because she expects the man to do it. And so what she does is that she invests in herself to get sort of the guy that can then buy the apartment that she wants to live in, with those nails and with this hair and with all these luxurious things that she kind of embodies. And I'm saying it with like zero judgment whatsoever. Like I think I've grown to a place where I'm like, honestly, why the hell did I ever want to work? You know? I'm joking, maybe I'm not, whatever, you know. It's just, it's this place where you roll back to a place, you know, but you roll back to it with a new awareness and with years lived and kind of learned, and you come back to it as a kind of, you are never fully free, but you come to it freer to make a choice, and so you deliberately make this choice, and it feels totally different because you're no longer doing it because all your girlfriends are doing it, and if you don't do it you feel like shit, you know. Or because, I don't know, people won't want to be friends with you if they have a doubt whether you can afford a certain bag or a pair of shoes, but you do it just because it's fun. Like it's fun, and so few things are fun, you know, when you've tried many different things. So first of all, I think it comes from a mentality of like, you know, you invest in yourself because it's not your job to invest in an apartment. It's somebody else's job. So to get that somebody else that fits your kind of... I think every girl thinks like that. I think maybe subconsciously all of them do, but consciously not everyone. But because it's such a like widespread idea that men should take care of. I guess. For all my friends from back home, even those that are like in other European countries, they share this mentality. Like all my girlfriends, they're, you know, the ones that are married, it's the guy taking charge of like financials. She's making money, but it's her money. She spends it on her. If she decides to take them out for dinner, then that's great. If she decides to buy something into the apartment, that's fantastic, you know. She doesn't want to work, that's an option too, you know. In a weird way, poor guys, but like it's a thing. And you know, like some family members close to me are living this way. In Armenia, it's even worse. You know, Armenians are like, it's a whole heavy thing. So I could totally see the girls investing in themselves because that's a sort of procedure almost to get to a life you want. In a weird way, it's like performative, but like fashion is performative. Then going back to me, I think when I was living in Eastern geographical space, I was still much younger and I was kind of occupied with other things. Like I left Belarus when I was 20, and then I left Russia where I was living for like when I was 22. You know, I was still kind of shaping up, and I was obsessed with fashion and cinema as a teenager, and kind of, I think, just being so into these things, like so preoccupied, kind of just, and also I was Armenian growing up in Belarus. I was already not like everybody else, and the, you know, Belarusian society was not that inclusive. So in a way, I like didn't fit in that system. So I did not leave that. And within the Armenian community, oh God forbid, you know, like my biggest fear was to be forced to get married when I'm, you know.
Oh, was it at the table?
Yeah, it was. I think when I was like a teenager, there were talks all the time about that. And like I was cultured. Like I come from quite a working class family. My parents both have higher education, but you know, that's where it ended for my mom. She was never intended to work. She was intended to just get an education so that
she has one.
Her husband has something to talk to her. And then we kind of, my sister and I, we went to a really nice school. She tried to take us to piano lessons. Both of us suffered horribly. I regret it till this day.
Really?
Yeah, I regret that I haven't finished the school. We quit like 2 years later. We just couldn't do it. But then she took us to dance classes, and I stayed. Like, this was something that I really loved, and I danced for years when I was younger. Then they pulled us out because we were teenagers, so we weren't supposed to be seen on the stage because we were supposed to be brides one day. Like, this whole cultural thing, you know. And
wow. Serious.
Yeah.
Some
That's
serious
like
stuff.
That's like my unfinished dancing career thing, you know. That hopefully
I was
one
dancing
day.
R&B and hip hop when I was 12.
Yeah.
Embarrassing.
Amazing. No, I mean, whoa, like.
No, it's really
today,
fun, but
you
I'm
know?
just imagining how it looked. Thank God I don't know.
My problem is I don't have to imagine. There are video recordings of our like things, and I was part of Todes, you know.
No.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
side note, that's Todd's kids dancing schools. That's luxury.
A sect.
That's luxury to you, seriously.
Exactly. Yeah, but
that was like
that was
kids
crazy.
of oligarchs
Oh
dancing.
no, not in Belarus. But it was still, it was expensive. But guess what? I was dancing for
They
maybe...
fucking always having TV segments on those kids on MTV, which is...
That was what I wanted to be doing.
Which
but
was so insane because everybody was like, give me back the music videos from the USA. I don't want to see those rich kids dancing horribly in some weird theater with bad lighting.
I was dancing well and I wasn't rich. Just saying.
That's really cool. Okay, continue.
No, I don't remember actually, but I remember that these like all the people trained within the school, like the ones that would actually make it, they would like dance with pop stars and stuff.
For real?
That was the future I was hoping for. I was basically auditioned to be doing that because we had like selected group of people within the Belarusian scene. I was doing pretty well, honestly. But my dad just got, like, he came to a concert. No judgment, really. Like, no judgment. I would probably have done the same to my kid today. I was, like, maybe 13 or 14. He came to our, like, yearly concert, whatever it was. I wasn't performing yet with, like, the pop stars. It was just, like, amongst friends, you know? And he came to the concert, and we were, like... whatever, performing in mini shorts, like bras, red lace, like crazy shit with like Britney Spears' Toxic soundtrack.
And you were 13.
That was my last concert. My dad was like, that's it, we quit. But I was the girl in the front row, the one next to the center. You know, like there was the main girl, and then there was
really good.
And my teacher was like, "You're too lazy. You could have been the girl in the center." But it never happened. Now it's my dad to blame, not my discipline. But what was I talking about, like Todes, even? I don't even remember.
I asked you about investing in your body.
Oh yeah,
and
education.
Then your girlfriends, and then we went to segue into this. What is one thing you reframed from the tradition or the society-approved way of behaving within fashion into a desire and a pure pleasure after moving and living away for so long?
Yeah, so one thing I can tell for sure is that I totally felt like an outsider when I was within that context. And then when I arrived to Paris to do my studies, that was the first year I felt like totally like a Moscow girl. Everyone at school was calling me a Moscow girl because I was wearing like full-on makeup, and I wasn't wearing it to be pretty. I was just trying to look less ugly in my world, you know, but it's like part of the same kind of thinking process, I guess. And all the French girls like were like, well, you know, why do you have like foundation, mascara, blush, like conceal, what, I don't know, like I was 22, like why was I wearing that? I don't know exactly.
Everybody
but it was a habit, you know.
Yeah.
We were doing, and then I think I moved to Paris, and one of the first things I bought was like this fucking Sandro, am I supposed to say fucking? Well, I said it twice now. This Sandro like pink coat. And I was just wearing it. I was dressing.
Wait, was it like a trench coat?
No, it was like a coat, like a fitted,
duster.
Yeah, fitted,
woolen.
kind of.
Okay.
Exactly. And
fuchsia?
I was known. No, it was like I don't know what you call this shade of pink. It's like not Barbie pink, not fuchsia. It's something like. It was alright. It really didn't look like. I guess it was a bit tacky, but I was wearing all black most of the time, and then I had this coat, and this was the thing that I used to like, I guess, identify myself with. So like this new chapter of my life, this was this coat. So anyways, rolling back to it, I think I felt like Eastern, finally, I felt like an insider when I was outside, actually, physically, technically, geographically outside. So then I was like, oh my God, you know, and I stopped putting on makeup. I stopped like whatever. I ended up my relationship with that coat, you know, no heels, like...
Oh, were you wearing all the heels?
Time. Dude, I was wearing like platform heels, like crazy stuff. Even when I was living in Belarus, because you would also, you know, as a teenager, the coolest thing you could ever do was to get in a club. So to get in a club, you had to wear like adult clothes. So I know.
I was pretty tall. Only thing I had to do was put red lipstick on. It was crazy. Well, red lipstick was opening doors.
1.56 meters. Yeah. The rest of my days.
Honestly, now it's goals height because it's Olsen Twins and Kardashians.
Olsen Twins are taller. Like, I'm just saying. They're like 165 or something. No. They're still taller. Yes, I went into the elevator with them multiple times. They're much taller than I am.
Okay, they look really short.
Bah, imagine how I looked trying to get into a club at 16.
No, but I was actually looking at you and I was like, damn, that should be cool because she can wear all those things for like that are short for me. That would look really very oversized and nice and very Olsen Twins like on you.
Yeah, that's
how I also decoded their style. I was like, well, they're not tall, so they are just wearing things that are not nice on me. They would look really great on them because they would be just hitting all the different lengths.
In my opinion, they're just the perfect height. Like, honestly, the Olsen Twins are the perfect height for fashion, kind of, for a certain fashion style. They were my fashion icon, like first my cinema icons, whatever, movie icons, culture icons. Then, you know, they became my fashion icons. Then they became kind of, you know, one of my first internships was at the Row in New York, which is how I rode in the elevator with them. They don't know all of that. I stayed cool. Just try to, you know, not get stuck in the elevator. But yeah, I think they're the perfect height, and I think they're like 163, maybe 165. I don't know. Fact check that, but they're definitely taller than I am. And there are two. That helps. It's never one of them. There's always two in all images. Most images we consume. That helps a lot too.
Why explain?
I don't know. It just feels the image. That there are two humans you're looking at as a union. You're not looking at one body. You're looking at two bodies that are dressed in a similar manner. And the two silhouettes work great together because you have these white heads, blonde heads, whatever. But then the mostly dark silhouettes that are...
How do you like styling group pictures? It's not really a common thing, is it? I feel like most of the fashion imagery now is like one person, white background.
I think it really depends. I mean, if you talk big campaign, like a bag campaign, whatever, yeah, oftentimes you'll have secluded one person imageries, but then...
They should really introduce more people into the imagery. I mean, it's a bit more expensive, but I think it would work.
It's just also harder to make a nice image when you have to deal with so many...
That's very true, and
elements.
I think that's where having a great cultured eye comes in. Okay, the pyramid of new luxury. The only thing I looked at it again today, after actually yesterday going to see a movie titled Conclave. It's about the Pope dying and then all the cardinals have to pick another Pope. Basically this whole process. And there was this one quote in the beginning, like a powerful speech. A cardinal says, presenting to all the cardinals that they're going to start this conclave and like choosing a pope. He's saying, where there is no doubt, there is no mystery. And when there is no mystery, there is no faith. And I was like, that's the luxury. Doubts. Having them and really not having at all. Both of those things are, in a sense, luxuries. Because to have doubts, you have to be so well cultured. And then to have no doubts, you have to be so shielded from reality. That's another like luxury.
That's a personality disorder.
Potentially, yeah. But I was looking back at this pyramid, and Nemesis is referring to the new ultra high-end luxury is having kids and still being cool. That being cool or maintaining being cool is also referred to in the layer below that, which is called super premium, as not having social media but still knowing what's cool. To which I personally object as like knowing what's cool or maintaining being cool is not as cool or as luxurious as they play it out to be. I feel like general awareness of the world, for example, maintaining awareness of the world without having to read news. Well, imagine the circumstance. That's luxurious, I feel like. Or like shielding yourself from news and not losing out or keep on winning. Like not having to know anything and still maintaining your lifestyle. That's luxury. That's really unattainable.
I think it's also interesting to define the relationship between the cool and the luxurious, because you can easily, I mean, it's not easily, but you can be cool without having any access to any of the luxury.
It's so arbitrary.
People who have access to luxury, whatever it is, like physical luxury, often love, they are not the coolest people. They create a cult of cool people who are most of the time poor, struggling to pay rent, whatever, want to make art, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like another commodity they're consuming. So of course you can kind of know what's cool and now have social media, because also we know well that, what comes with wealth is also a certain like social fabric, that doesn't just disappear because you're not using Instagram. So you're connected to a lot of influential people that also supply you with information, and you have money to access most places and things that are aware and interconnected. So social media is not that
it's for cheap bastards. It's like for poor people. Social media is for poor people. Also, I was thinking that Nemesis is really putting this whole luxury pyramid, and it's really hard to, I think, actually coming back to what we were talking of before, your luxury pyramid is based on your upbringing and perspective you bring with yourself. So we can never actually analyze the true luxury pyramid of people who actually can afford the top luxury we can imagine ourselves to have. So if, for example, in my luxury pyramid, the top luxury would be to never read news and still be winning, a person who is never reading news and still winning has completely different idea of what it is luxury is for them. And I think in this Nemesis pyramid, they really put a super high emphasis on being cool, as I guess is the biggest commodity they're selling as an agency, that they are cool, which I don't know. I think as a strategy, it's not so smart. It's very excluding and arbitrary, and then any other person can say that they're cool as well. What is their claim to fame then?
Yeah, and especially with such a critical take on things, to kind of capitalize on the word cool or the world cool, is kind of stupid. I don't know them so well, so it's hard for me to like kind of get a grasp on their entire like strategy and identity, but I just think personally the word cool is like a moth. I see it as a moth that just like comes in a closet and then eats stuff, and then none of the stuff that was in the closet is good enough anymore because it has holes in it, and then this moth just like flies somewhere else and eats somewhere else, and as a result you just have a place you hate and that used to be home once, because everything's just consumed by this creature that is
and
not
then,
to be seen anywhere.
And then this moth in 10 years, it's coming back to this room and seeing the like half-eaten sweaters and being like, oh my god, those are the coolest sweaters. Do you remember we liked them 10 years ago? Look at them now. And then they start eating out what they haven't eaten the first time. So it's like with all those trend cycles, that it's never the same thing that actually was nice 10 years ago. It's the thing that everybody thought was ugly. Yeah, I think the moth example here really makes sense.
And it's totally, it kind of loops back into what you were saying about appropriating in general.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was just, before coming here, I was with this designer I'm working with, and he was listening to this podcast where a kind of like A-list fashion personality was being interviewed on their musical tastes, but there was a lot of like culture talk there, and I just couldn't hold my anger and kind of just behave, because I was I think I have an issue when fashion kind of personalities try and convince the world that we have souls and we're good. We're not. If you're successful in the fashion industry and if you've lasted for decades, it means you probably at some point had to trade your values for your career. I'm not saying these people are worse or better than any other kind of successful professionals, but we're definitely not busy here building a better world. Like, that's just not what we're good at. I'm like, I don't exist, I think, in the luxury pyramid we just discussed. I'm somewhere digging in the underground. But, the reality is that whatever, even if it's conscious or unconscious, like, that's where, the top of the pyramid is like what I aspire to be, mixed with my own weird, like, Eastern heritage, immigrant experience in whatever France.
What's on top of your pyramid?
That's not something I expected to answer.
I'm
but
such
I think,
a great interviewer.
This is gonna sound cringe, and you're probably gonna love it.
Okay,
amazing.
But cringe sublime,
Exactly, this is the theme. But I think the top of my pyramid is just like being able to do the things I like, aka styling, costume work, writing, being able to enjoy telling stories, because that's essentially what I like. It's just telling stories and performing. Like, fashion is a very performative act, and we're up the word desire, which I think we should have gone back to. But anyways, being able to do all these things and being able to stick to my values and being able to stay a person that I respect. So far, it's been kind of like a fair game, but watching the world around me that I have access to, I just also recognize that if I could just maybe give up on certain principles, my life would, it's not necessarily a guarantee you'll have a career, but it's like, it just makes it easier for you if you just don't have to worry about certain things. I recently had a conversation with someone, and I just said that you kind of learn to kind of put on and put off your humanity. When you go to, like, into this world and you do into this job, and the conditions are very particular. It's a context that's a bit removed from everyday life, and you tell stories to a point that you start believing them yourself. It's like politics, basically.
Yeah,
that it creates a sort of weird dissonance with
marketing.
Exactly.
Sure.
So I think the top of my pyramid, this sounds very cringe, but like the top of it is to just have like a luxurious life to a certain degree and not feel shit about myself and how I've treated other people to get there.
It's very attainable. I hope so. Just maybe it's not. If you say it's luxury, maybe it's actually way harder than I think it is. Gosh. But what about desire?
Do you really believe that people these days, like, I do think this is the key aspect that's driving kind of fashion economy, driving our lives, driving personal progress, so many things, like unrelated and related to fashion directly. Desire is the key, but it just feels like where I am, this world, the conversation on desire is just very underwhelming. And I don't know if Western insider fashion / marketing / even luxury world is still able to desire in that kind of active way. You can tell it, like, you can tell it that and this is why I think, like, dictatorships turn to perform very well for fashion. Like, wherever you have a country where people just, like, simply are afraid of their lives, they're buying fashion like nobody else. You go to luxury stores in Paris, it's not like French people lining up to buy Rolex, or whatever it is.
Yeah, of course.
LV bag. So in a way, I can see desire, like, work in these places where we come from, or further away, but within the world of people who make luxury, or within the world that creates the images or even consumes, I don't think, it's almost like people in Europe who can consume luxury, or, like, I don't know, the West, let's call it, who can afford luxury, do it out of habit, sort of, because what would they do if they didn't? But there's no, like, real celebration or desire or, like, kind of competition, or I don't know, these things that you, like, there's no race, there's no adrenaline.
Yeah, of course. Well,
it's like a depressed kind of libido situation.
It's very much depressed libido situation, and it's a bit of a twofold. Geographically speaking, of course, French people, for one, I guess, on general, also generalizing here very much. They, back to what we were talking, for them it's a habit because it was there all along. And if it's not there, you crave it. So that's why the countries that never had it or have way less of it, they want it more. But on the other hand, I think the idea of this depressed libido, I think generally the libido is sort of depressed. On average, I'm actually sometimes very curious, I'm thinking about those Greek gods and all those stories about Dionysus and having like parties and fucking and drinking a lot of wine and just being completely, like raving out. Actually, I was talking the other day, my friend was like, let's go to a sex party in Amsterdam. I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, the tickets are out online for sale tomorrow at like 7 p.m. And imagine how depressed your libido desire function should be that you would like save up or didn't save up. You would just put an alarm to buy a ticket to a sex party so you don't miss out.
I mean, people do that to see Taylor Swift, so
yeah,
she doesn't even sleep with them, so I don't know. Whatever gets you through the day.
I mean, in general, buying tickets to a party in advance for me is very depressing, but the sex party in advance?
Wait, we need to place it in the pyramid. Where does it fall? Like, where does it go?
The sex party?
Buying tickets to an exclusive sex party. Like, lining up,
that's
whatever.
Not luxurious at all. That's like anti-luxurious.
But then it's limited, right?
Because I know for a fact that luxurious people organize their own orgies.
That they don't sell tickets to.
They don't buy tickets to it for sure.
Exactly, and they don't sell them either.
I think they just fly in people to those parties.
To their islands, you mean?
Yeah. The only tickets involve airline tickets.
But the people that get flown, do they give their consent? That's the.
I hope so.
Should we start the whole PDD talk?
No, please, Jesus. But I was also thinking about that online shopping sort of killed the desire 100%. That the death of desire. There's so much more desire in standing in a queue to buy that bag than to be on Essence sale. Also, imagine how much closer you are. Like in one tab you have Pornhub and another one you have like alerts for a sale. That's just so sad. But I think that's the reality of most. Also, the gamification of both. Which also makes sense. That's so easy to gamify shopping and it's so easy to gamify sex. Must be a lot in common.
Yeah, and going back to the idea of like going to the stores for sales, I mean, it's a horror I never want to experience, but it's like, or like sample sales, you sweat and you like get tired and you push your way through and it gets very competitive like during sample sales. It's really, it makes you alive in a weird way. Like you're probably not proud of yourself when you're out of there. Or you are because you grabbed the item you really wanted, fought for your life. But, it's
that's a great experience. You're probably not proud of yourself afterwards. I mean, that's applicable in many situations. I have to ask you about what's in your bag. What's up?
What's in my bag?
What did you take with you today?
I'm traveling, so no judgment. I'm traveling. There's not
Show
much.
me what you're not proud of.
There's not like, there's my phone.
Yeah.
I like all small people. I like big accessories, okay? I don't have a driving license, but if I did, I would probably drive what's like the biggest car in the world.
Jumbo truck? Oh, monster truck.
Monster truck. No, I don't want to be driving a monster truck. I have my gloves.
Okay, very chic. I love it.
They're chic, but like you can touch your iPhone screen with that, so that's real luxury right there.
Yeah, you see? Luxury is easy.
Byredo.
Okay, yeah. Wow, that's really nice.
This is for travels. Perfect.
I love the Byredo closure with a magnet.
Yeah.
That's so smart.
They were genius about that.
Mm-hmm. I love so far everything is black and leather.
Sunglasses, which I don't think I would ever need for Amsterdam anyways.
I was wearing my sunglasses here today.
Portange, love it. Best sunglasses I've ever owned. This is promotion. There's my wallet.
Portange.com. Not paid advertisement.
There's a tampon. My earphones.
Okay. That's very important.
Cotton.
It's the first tampon on the podcast.
Oh, I'm glad to be your first.
There were only men before you.
There was like a woman that's been dead for centuries on your podcast, so I assume she doesn't have to deal with that. Hope she's doing well.
Oh, yeah.
That's about it, I think. This is my friend's bag, like Nancy Abetisan. Yeah. And then I packed it in another bag of hers that's like a fabric thing that's really amazing, beautiful, like a almost braided. And then Nancy's bag I packed into a castle bag. It's like matryoshka. Just pull this one out.
Thank you so much for sharing it.
Okay, you're always welcome.